So we've been reading about the Korbanos, Parshas Vayikra, Parshas Tzav, and we'll continue throughout Sefer Vayikra, at least the beginning. And there's one of the Korbanos. We know when a person sins, they have to bring a Korban Chatas. They have to bring a sin offering. And certain sins, depending on what you did, what the punishment was, but ultimately, you do something wrong, in general, you have to bring a korban and do tshuva. However, this interesting korban, let's say, Rov Klal Yisrael, the majority of Klal Yisrael, the majority of the Jewish people, actually who live in Eretz Yisrael, they sin. And it was based on the fact that the Beis Din Hagadol went ahead and they paskin wrong on some shayla. A Shabbos question, Chametz b'Pesach, something which is Chayiv Kares, and you did a Pishogeg. So there's a Par Helam Davar Shel Tzibor that you don't have to bring, the people who sin don't have to bring, but based in Haggadah, they have to bring, they bring and represent for Klal Yisrael. So, and that's what the Mishnah Hurrias tells us, that what Beis Din makes a mistake, so that's it, we have to change it. We know that there's no precedent that if it's wrong, we follow it anyway. That since it was paskin this way, end the discussion. We see from the Mishnah Hurrias that if Beis Din makes a mistake and we're aware of the mistake, so we change it. So the question is, the Ramban, I think, is one of the first to ask the question is, there's a pasuk in Parshas Shoftim, which is the source of listening to the Chachamim, listening to the rabbis. So Tzav and Adavar, Asher Yagidu L'cha Yamino Smo. You have to follow the Beis Din Hagadol. You can't turn away from them, Yamino Smo, left or right. So the Rashi quotes the famous Sifri, Afilu, what do you mean you right and left? So it says, even if they tell you right is left, or left is right, you still have to listen to them. So many interpret Rashi to mean, or to the Sifri, it's a simple reading of Sifri, that you have to follow the rabbis even if they're wrong. And in fact, when Herman Wouk, who wrote the Cain Mutiny, about a boat, that there was a mutiny on, about the captain, about listening to the captain, even if he was telling you crazy things, that if you're on a ship, the captain's the boss, and you listen to the captain no matter what. So too, you listen to Chachamim no matter what. However, we'll see that's not really the pshat, as we'll see in the Sifri. At least according to the Ramban. The Ramban writes that no, that the Sifri is really, the Ramban says, you're missing the word, it's nira kenecha. If you know they're wrong, so that's the Mishnah Harios, you don't follow them. How you know they're wrong, that's a separate discussion. If you know they're wrong, you don't follow what they say. But if nira benecha, if you just think it's your opinion, you think they're wrong, but you don't know as much as they know, so then you have to follow. Even though in your mind they're saying right is left, left is right, but really they're probably saying right is right and left is left, you just don't have a right. So if you know they're wrong, that's the Mishnah Harios. And if you think they're wrong, but it's your opinion they're wrong, so then it's nira benecha, then you have to follow them anyway. So that's how the Ramban reconciles the apparent contradiction. There's a Sefer, the Dor Ravi, the fourth generation, I think it was the great-grandson of the Chasam Sofer. The first one named after the Moshe Glasner, I believe. He wrote a Sefer on Chulin, very interesting article. He was a modern thinker. Rav Shachtar says he was kind of like the Briskers. So he went ahead and he has an interesting piece. He has many interesting pieces, but one we'll discuss right now is he raises this question that the Ramban raises. Like, on one hand we say you have to listen to the rabbis even if they're wrong. That's the Sifri. On the other hand, the Mishnah says in Harios, we don't follow mistakes. We have to, we don't continue doing the wrong thing. We know it's wrong, we change it. So he has an interesting answer. He wants to say, he touches on, and we'll get into it more another time, he gets into the question of what happens when medical science and halacha seemed to be in conflict. That halacha was based on some erroneous fact, or let's say spontaneous generation, that they thought that the lice or the worms in the fish, they just come from the sweat, there are no eggs, it's not sexually produced. And yet, now and today's science rejects that it's not true. So he wants to say the following. He says, it depends. If Chazal made a psak based on the science of that time, and at that time, that was the accepted science of that time. If everyone believed in spontaneous generation or whatever we're talking about, any other case, if Chazal discussed it with the scientists of that time, and that was the belief at that time, so that's how he wants to explain it. He says, if Chazal, when they spoke to the scientists of that time, and that was believed to be correct at the time, so that's a sifri. Even though today things have changed, but that's what you mean. You follow right, left is right. Perhaps because we'll see that once it was canonized in the Talmud, so that's it. That's what he's suggesting. However, if it was erroneous at the time, science didn't believe in science said it was wrong from the beginning, even during their time, and they paskin based on that. So then you change it. You don't listen to them. So he wants to make an interesting distinction between whether Chazal at the time were correct when they made the psak, versus if they were correct at the time. So even though now we found out differently, the psak remains. But if they were wrong from the beginning, so then we don't accept. That's how he explains. That's why today he says. That's why we're permitted to kill lice on Shabbos, because even though now we know lice doesn't come from sweat, and really there's a biblical prohibition of netilas neshama, but he says since the psak was based on correct information at that time, the scientists believe in spontaneous generation, so therefore the psak remains that you could kill a lice on Shabbos, or in terms of eating the fish with the worms, etc. That's how he wants to explain. Pashas, it's an interesting explanation, but it seems others say that it's not the Pashas. A mistake's a mistake. It doesn't make a difference if Chazal were right at the time. Or Shlomo Zalman, I think, says like this, that it doesn't make a difference whether if during the time of Chazal they believed in spontaneous generation, and then later on, now we don't believe in it, or whether they believed it then. The bottom line is, if today we say that there's no spontaneous generation, so if the facts change, so Nishtana Hadin, the din also changes. So why then, according to this approach, would anyone say that you still could kill lice on Shabbos or with the worms? That would be for a different reason, that they would be saying that it's not that Chazal, when they said it came from sweat, they didn't actually really mean it came from sweat. They meant to say, just like this halacha, we can't eat bugs, but every time we walk around, we swallow these microscopic bugs. But then that's not what the Torah prohibited. So the Torah only prohibited bugs that we could see. So too, these eggs were of course there were eggs there, but they were so tiny that they couldn't be seen. So al pi halacha, Chazal just said this is considered spontaneous generation, but not that they actually thought that it was, and therefore al pi halacha, they were saying that these microscopic eggs aren't considered eggs, and therefore that's why you could still, even though we say they're wrong, but you could still go, even though we could say they're wrong, but they realized that al pi halacha, that's what they meant. It was considered spontaneous generation. Therefore, you could kill kina on Shabbos, even though normally it's nishtana ateva, nishtana hadin. So that's what you have to say. So some suggest that's what Chazal meant. There's a third approach of Roch and Wasserman. That what does it mean? That even when they tell you right is left and left is right. Of course, normally if the basin makes a mistake, so you correct it. So what does it mean? You follow right is left, left is right. We know when Rosh Hashanah falls out on Shabbos or Sukkot falls out on Shabbos, so Gzeira de Rabbi, even though there's a mitzvah in our Torah to shake the lulav or a mitzvah in our Torah to hear the shofar, nevertheless Chazal said no shofar today. Gzeira, you might come to carry, you violate Shabbos, you might come to carry 4 amas in Rishus Harabim in a public place. So they point out that, so the Gemara tells us in Yevamos, Yesh koach v'yachacham l'akord v'artor b'shevei al taseh. There's a power among the Chachamim to uproot a mitzvah by telling you not to do it. That they can do. Chazal can't go ahead if you're having a Mac attack and you feel you have to have a Big Mac. Chazal can't say, of course, if it's a suffix sakana, you could, but in case of someone just wants to have a strong desire for a Mac, and therefore we can't say, well, it's okay to have it because we can't be okir dvar Torah b'kum v'aseh by actively violating it by merely telling you not to shake the lulav and not to hear the shofar. That they can do. That's a Rav Chanan says. That's what it's referring to. The Torah says no shofar today. No, the Torah says shofar today, and the rabbis come along and say no shofar. They go so on that you have to listen to the rabbis, even if they're telling you right is left. I mean, the Torah is saying blow the shofar, the rabbis are saying not. So there's a power among the Chacham, they can tell you to do something not b'shei al taseh. So there's a couple of different approaches. How do we reconcile? From the Sifri it says that we listen to them mashma even if they're wrong. Even if they tell you right is left, left is right. And from the Mishnah increases, we don't follow the Chacham if they're wrong. We change it. So the Ramban says, of course, we don't follow the Chacham if they're wrong. And the Sifri, you just have to put in one word, nirin, be'inech, it appears to you. When it appears to you they're wrong, who cares what it appears to you? You listen to the Chachamim, not what you think. The Dor Rabbi, Rav Moshe Glasner, he says it depends. If Chazal were right at the time, based on the science at the time, so then we have to follow them. That's the Sifri. Even if the science changes later on and we see it was wrong, but if Chazal gave the psak based on real-time knowledge that it was correct, so then the psak remains even if today the science is wrong. That's how you could kill a kina on Shabbos, even though we don't believe in spontaneous generation. But if they were erroneous from the get-go, so then you don't follow. That's the Mishnah Harios and the Rav Chana. And normally, obviously, like the Mishnah says, if they make a mistake, so then we change it and go with the right thing. What does the Sifri mean? That's referring to the Kol HaChacham, and at certain times, even though the Torah says one way, Yesh Kol B'Yachacham L'Akord V'Torah B'Shevei Al Taseh, you can follow them, and we follow the Chachamim because the Torah tells us about the Chachamim, and as the Rambam writes, it's really doing as a siag around. As the Rambam writes in Hilchos Mamrem, that you see someone's walking by and you see someone who looks like he's killing a person, butchering them. So when you get closer, you see it's a doctor cutting off a person's leg, but he's amputating the leg because else the person would die. So he's really cutting off. So it's true the person's losing a leg, but his life is being saved. Certain times, Zman min Zmanim, Chachamim want to keep the tzura of Shabbos, or they see the big picture, and it's true we'll be lacking that year in shofar lulav, but in the big picture, Chazal are telling us that better not to blow shofar this year, not to shake lulav, in order to keep, in this case, to keep Shmir Shabbos strong and all the other mitzvahs.